Business owners, executives, and entrepreneurs, get your pen and paper ready and tune in Sundays at 1 p.m. for Evolution Strategies, Business Sustainability and Growth Simplified. You must evolve to meet the challenges of today's marketplace. This is the only show in the Philly metro area that walks you step by step through success factors that make or break your brand. Want some free advice? Call in Sundays at 1 p.m. to talk to your host, Carolyn Lighty, and a panel of experts for Evolution Strategies, Business Sustainability and Growth Simplified.
Good afternoon. I'm Carolyn Lighty, and welcome to this edition of Evolution Strategies. We've got a full house today with experts joining us to talk about the importance of creating a sustainable startup ecosystem here in Delaware. That sounds like a mouthful, doesn't it? But what it really means, very simply, is that we're going to be talking about the importance of creating an environment that's friendly and conducive to starting and growing small businesses. Did you know that according to the SBA, small businesses comprise 99.7% of the total employer firms in the United States? Over 50% of the working population, that's 120 million individuals, they work for small businesses. Small businesses have generated over 65% of the new net jobs since 1995. And there are approximately 500,000 new businesses that get started each month. The key, though, is providing a sustainable environment and resources that will help them stay in business. Joining me today are experts that understand this process and what it takes to help businesses today, especially given our economic climate. And so we're going to start our initial conversation with Wes Garnett. He's co-founder of the Coin Loft. That's a wonderful resource here in Wilmington, Delaware, downtown Wilmington. And welcome to the show, Wes.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about the Coin Loft and its inception. You know, where did the idea come from, and how did you get involved?
Certainly. So the Coin Loft is a co-working space. You can just Google co-working and you'll find spaces like the Coin Loft all over the place. Essentially, the idea was to get creative people together into one space, into one building, really to create new things, to feel supported, to feel like they had a sense of community and not working disparately in their coffee shops or home. And the Coin Loft really came out of this idea. My business partner, Steve, and I started the Coin Loft about 4 years ago. We were working out of my apartment. We had just left a job in financial services, and we were looking for community, places that we could learn, also contribute. And we really weren't able to find exactly what we were looking for. So we had this harebrained idea to start a space of our own. After going to Philly and partaking in sort of the community life there at Indy Hall, you can Google that and find it. It's a really, really great place. It was actually the first co-working space on the East Coast. So we were there and we had a really great time, and we figured Delaware needed something like it, so we started it.
Well, that's great. So coin, when folks that are listening might think Coin Loft, I'm thinking pennies, nickels, quarters. Explain what the coin stands for.
Yeah, it stands for Community Innovation. If you look at the name, you'll see the small CO and the uppercase IN. What we were really getting at is that innovation was going to be the heart of our community. Not innovation in the sense of just creating new things for the sake of new things, but looking at the problems that we saw around us and actively participating towards change. That was really what we had in mind, and we thought the best way to do that was through community. Okay.
And how long has the Coin Loft been around?
Just about 4 years.
4 years, okay. And so in terms of best practices, did you look at, co-working spaces in other cities other than Philadelphia, or did you kind of model it after what you saw in Philadelphia?
We did. Just the openness of the community itself was our first, best practice that we wanted to bring about. The structure of the space itself was sort of built loosely off of the structure of W.L. Gore and how they work in pods and teams, and how they're able to turn out such great product. We thought, man, if we could create an environment where people felt encouraged and they felt supported to create cool things together, then we would have, done exactly what our vision was. So, pulling from what co-working spaces had done around the country, and also from the W.L. Gore model, was really what we had in mind.
So, are you targeting mostly high-tech companies with what you have to offer at the Coin Loft, or is it open kind of to every type of business?
When we started, we were interested in internet technology. So when we started, we really wanted to see folks that were interested in that to come together. But we've seen the gamut, anyone from lawyers to photographers and videographers and filmmakers, and all kinds of people have come to the Coin Loft, really seeking the same thing. Community of people that they can feel supported with and contribute to Delaware.
So if I were to, take a tour, say, of the Coin Loft, what would I see? And in terms of the collaboration or the community that I think seems to run through what you're talking about in terms of the theme of what you are providing, give me an idea of what that may look like. What does that look like?
So the space itself is more decorated like a coffee shop, very open. We don't have any walls yet. We will. We're going through some construction now, so we will have some private spaces that people can have if they want a closed door. But by and large, we're in an open space like a coffee shop. Mm-hmm. You find a place to sit, you sit down, you get to work. And what happens is, as you're working on things and people pass you by, conversation sparks. It's not mm-hmm. structured in a sense of, at 12 o'clock we're going to get together and we're going to talk about this or that. Sometimes that does happen. It's few and far between. What it really is people interacting as people and talking about the things they're passionate about. I, for one, have benefited from that in the sense that looking over someone's shoulder and sort of seeing what they've done, I've picked up skills that I didn't even know mm-hmm. I had within me to even learn. And being able to come up the curve a lot quicker in almost like an apprenticeship type of way, mm-hmm. where you're watching someone work and you're learning the tricks of the trade. That's really what the space itself is all about, being able to view in and see people work in ways that you've not seen before, and you're able to add to your own skill set, which is why the space being as open as it is really works for us.
Interesting. I know in conversations that I've had with Will Minster, he's mentioned that I should get involved with you guys. So I'm glad to have you guys on the show because this just makes me want to get involved a little bit more quickly. Put some things
thank
aside.
you. Will is a great friend of the Coin Loft. And, we've always been in support of what he's doing. He's been even greater supporter of us. Great.
And so what he's mentioned to me is that there are various workshops or events that take place that provide education, learning certain software programs and things like that may be of benefit to a business owner who, just isn't really up to speed when it comes to the technology aspect of running a business. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the workshops or classes?
Certainly. So we have, the first and foremost, we have Delaware Tech Meetup. It's probably the most open of all programs that we offer. It gives people, and don't be sort of alarmed by the word technology. What we really are is a group of people that are interested in coming together and learning new things from each other. It happens to be that we're interested in seeing technology folks come together, but we really make it accessible to everyone, and we cover all kinds of topics that anyone can really sit in it and grab some value from. From there, though, we do have this year we started offering classes, and we've had a full stack of classes, ranging from intro to entrepreneurship to learning, development languages like Ruby on Rails, which I guess some of your listeners may be familiar with. Mm-hmm. What we're really getting at with our different programs and classes, and Mona can speak to this a little bit more, but we think that it's really tough to go back to school. It's expensive, and not everyone has the time for it, especially when you're running a business and you need the skills today to make money tomorrow. And what we really wanted to give people the opportunity to do is jump into something that's accessible. It's low cost. Most of our classes range from $15 to $25, and it gives people the opportunity to take home something after every class. So if you walk in with a problem, say to one of our Photoshop classes, and you want to design flyers or whatever it might be for your company, from day one, you're going to learn how to do that. And we're really trying to put people back on the streets with knowledge that they can put into practice in their businesses and do the things they've always dreamed about, knowing, again, that they have the support of a full community of people that are interested in the same thing.
Well, that's fantastic. I can actually understand now why Will thought this would be a great opportunity for us to kind of collaborate, because back in June, I held an event that was called Evolve Loma, and basically we shared with them through a panel of experts, tips and techniques that they could use immediately in their business. This took place on a Thursday, and on Friday, I wanted them to actually be able to go to their business and be able to implement at least, a few of the tips that we talked about and unveiled during that event. So, immediate help, immediate information is how we get our businesses to be able to compete, with the digital world that we're in. I think it's fantastic that you're offering, in layman's terms, some of these things that they need to know about, and to teach them, a little bit, about what they need to do in order to remain competitive from a technology standpoint.
Certainly, certainly.
What would you say is the biggest challenge that a small business owner or an entrepreneur, a single entrepreneur, faces today?
Speaking from my own situation, I would say time. Being able to turn ideas into something while also maintaining what you've built, sort of being stretched in terms of resources. I think some people would say access to capital, but I think when business owners that are true entrepreneurs have enough time to think, they'll figure it out. So what the Coin Loft allows people to do is sort of multiply the time they have available to them, because you can jump into conversations with people that know exactly what you're talking about, aren't in it for the money. They can give you stripped down information that you can just take with you, and the search that we typically have to go through to find the resources that we need or the answers that we need to move forward are accessible to us whenever we need it. And that's an important dynamic that I think only exists in the way that we have it now at the Coin Loft. And I've seen time and time again people be able to do things that they didn't even know they could do, only because they're able to learn so quickly and get back out in the street and do what they need to do so quickly. Yeah,
real life experience, real life training,
Absolutely.
Real life experience. Wes, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. Give people some information about how they can get in touch with you or get involved with the Coin Loft.
Yeah, probably the easiest way to get in touch with me is either through Twitter or Facebook. If you're on Twitter, I am at Wes_Garnett. And if you're on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Wes Garnett DE.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. We're going to actually start talking a little bit more with Mona Parikh. She is the managing director of It Up Delaware, and she's also very much involved with what goes on there at the Coin Loft. So I'm looking forward to that. And we hope to have you join us some other time in the future.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, hopefully that was, interesting information for you guys out there. We're now going to turn our conversation over to Mona Parikh. She is the managing director, as I said, of It Up Delaware. And, she's very well versed in what it takes, I think, to creating the types of environments where small businesses can flourish. So welcome to the show, Mona.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for having us on today.
Absolutely. So, Wes had an awful lot to say about the Coin Loft and some of the things that a person can expect when they go there. Let's talk a little bit more about It Up Delaware. Tell me a little bit about that and your involvement with that organization.
Okay, well, It Up Delaware was actually the natural, I think, outcome and logical next step for the Coin Loft. I think Wes and Steve had grown up the community for over about 3 years and then decided that in order to take it to the next level, in order to really make the full impact necessary in Delaware, it needed to have access to a few more resources to facilitate that process. And to that end, they created a board and really found some leaders and entrepreneurs in Delaware to become part of the effort to create the board. And then some of the resources they were able to access were through the Delaware Economic Development Office and Governor Markell's office, both of whom were tremendous allies to our mission. And so they did apply for some funding through DIDO, which they did acquire, I guess, earlier this year. And basically that funding is going to be used to, physically expand our space. We were able to upgrade and move into a 4,500 square foot office space on Market Street, and also to give us the ability and the resources to have some better events and programming, including our classes.
So when I think about it, would you consider this an incubator environment? What exactly would you call that? And let's talk, maybe we should start with what is an incubator?
Okay, so glad you asked that question. There are actually two different types of incubators, but the biggest difference between an incubator and an accelerator, which is another sort of model that's being used around the country, is that an incubator typically does not provide funding to a startup. Some incubators do provide office space, some have entry criteria, some provide a curriculum, instructors and mentors, while others do not. And their run time is about 90 days, so a little bit or under 3 months, which, is kind of a short time.
So when you say run time, that's the amount of time they can be physically located within that particular environment?
Correct. So typically they would apply to an incubator program, and then in about 90 days or 3 months, they would have to launch and seek funding on their own. An accelerator, on the other hand, accepts a fixed class or fixed teams of startups, and they do provide funding in exchange for equity. Their entry criteria is pretty high. So, for example, Y Combinator, it's harder to get into Y Combinator than it is to get into Harvard, is what, people say. There is a curriculum and they have mentors, but they don't really provide you any office space. And their typical runtime is also really short. But here in Delaware, and with Started Up Delaware, we really wanted to focus on the concept of a nurturator. And I know that's a term that not many of you, or probably any of you, have heard before. So it was a term that our board coined, actually. And here in Delaware, we believe that startups need to feel from day one that they are getting the support they need.
Yeah.
We think that setting a 90-day limit on a startup is and can feel a little arbitrary, and in many cases is an unrealistic expectation. And we don't want a startup to fail before it really has a chance. What we want is for startups and our nurturator to feel that they have been given enough time and resources they need to get to a point where they are ready to launch. And we intend, to that end, to provide access to a network of mentors within a specific industry who can offer expertise and guidance. And we also want to offer them access to a space where they can actually get their work done at the Coin Loft. And we do intend to follow the funding equity model, but the most important thing to keep in mind is that we want these startups to not just build, grow, and launch in Delaware. We actually want them to stay in Delaware. And the reason being is that's how the ecosystem becomes self-sustaining. When more and more success stories choose to stay and serve as mentors and potentially or even partners and or sources of funding to other startups coming down the line, that's when the ecosystem can become self-sustaining.
And employers.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I was looking at a few studies, and some of the older studies found that 87% of incubator graduates stayed in business, in contrast to, without being in an incubator, it's like 44%. But once you're in that nurturing environment, which kind of speaks to the whole thing that a lot of folks will say, it takes a village. Well, this is kind of a business village.
Absolutely.
And I like that. I think it's a great way to get our businesses to establish that strong foothold. You have to have a great foundation in order to build upon it. And I think that that's one of the things that you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
Great. So in terms of the services, you're saying basically those services are those that are being fulfilled through the Coin Loft? Is that
exactly?
Okay.
So kind of a little bit like what Wes was talking about, what you would typically see when you walked in the Coin Loft. It'd be a very open setting. We don't really have a lot of walls, and that's also because we haven't started our construction yet. But even
one step at a time.
Right. It does take a village. And so even after the walls come up, the main layout, the idea is to have a very open layout so that people can collaborate.
Right.
So they can look over someone else's shoulder and say, what are you working on? Or, hey, I have a question, or I'm having a problem with my website. I'm having issues with this line of code and I don't know how to fix it. And so many organic conversations like that can be overheard at the Coin Loft. And not only is that a great way to help each other, just figure out what our, how to progress. But it's also sometimes a source of a freelance job. I mean, you never know what you might see somebody else working on. And if they don't know how to do it, and if you have experience in that, then, that person may very well say, you know what, you're the expert on this. It seems like, let me just outsource this piece of the puzzle to you. And we especially love that kind of collaboration.
It's interesting. One thing, it's a phrase that I use often when I'm speaking in public or when I'm consulting with businesses. I'll say that your individual accomplishments pale in comparison to the strength of what you can do if you begin collaborating.
And collaboration is really the key here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely. That's great. So if I were to look in the Coin Loft, what kinds of businesses would I see there?
We actually have a few non-tech related kind of solo ventures, but I think the average Coin Loft member would be a developer, designer, on the tech industry standpoint. So we do have a few designers in-house, and we also have some people who have left their big jobs in order to work on their startup. And some of them are programmers and some of them aren't. Some of them are people who are working with other programmers who have maybe outsourced, or who whose programmers live in a different state and they just need one place to call home base in Delaware. So, and that's also a great way for them to, not just have a place to say is their home base, but also to benefit from the collaboration.
I've been involved with a couple of the incubator type environments down in Florida, and I know that one of the things that they were keen on was trying to recruit businesses within various industries so that it becomes self-supporting. So they made sure there was an attorney and a CPA and, all of those types of people there that not only are they working on, growing their own businesses, but then they also become a resource for the businesses within that environment.
Absolutely. And, I'm actually an attorney as well, that I have a legal background. So I don't know, I may have been one of either the first or the second attorney in this space, but since then we actually have two more attorneys who are working out of our space. One is Brenda Mayrack. She's a very good friend of mine who started Mayrack Law, and her main focus is unclaimed property, and also she's now starting to get into some startup law, which is great because that's sort of a new thing that both her and I are interested in learning more about. And so just by being in the space and getting to know some of the issues that startups tend to come across as they're getting going, that's been a great way for us to sort of learn and see how we can be helpful. And we also have another attorney in the space, but he's more working on starting a nonprofit company that provides some services to nonprofits. So
that's great. So there is kind of a nice little mix. And in terms of, you mentioned the word members. And so in order to become one of the companies within the Coin Loft and be able to utilize the services, you have to become a member.
So I guess the easiest way to explain it is think of it like a gym membership. We offer a desk in exchange for a couple $100 a month if you want to be a full-time member, and that gives you unlimited access to our space. You can drink our coffee, you can plug into our Wi-Fi, you can use our printer, and you have access to awesome people, which is priceless.
Which is the best part.
Right? But we have other membership levels too that are a little bit less. So if you're somebody who maybe is working full-time but just wants to kind of get your toe wet, into our space, for $50 a month you can have access to us for 5 days, in 5 days in a month. And that's a great way, I think, just for people to get a feel for it and start out. And then usually what ends up happening is, we see those people who want to stick around a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, and then it's kind of like, there's an awful lot of statistics about people who have home-based businesses and the stress and in terms of not even being able to focus on that business when you're in that environment. So I would think that the Coin Loft offers an opportunity for you to actually really get out and actually focus on your business.
Right, Carolyn, we hear that all the time. I mean, we hear from people who say, I have an office and at home and it's really nice, but my cat's there, my dog's there,
the laundry's there.
There's distractions. There's just a tendency to not get into an as structured of a routine as you would if you came in every day to somewhere that isn't your home. And when I first started my law practice, all of those things were true for me. But one of the biggest things I think that kept me coming back was the accountability. Wes and Steve knew what I was working on. They knew that every day I needed to be making progress. And so having to, come into somewhere where there's two people that say, so Mona, what'd you do today? That made me know and think not only are they trying to support me, but they're trying to help me by kind of keeping track. Exactly.
Sure.
So we try to do that for each other.
Mona, why don't you give everyone a little bit of contact information for you? How can they get in touch with you, find out more information?
Sure. The best way to get in touch with us is to send us an email, crew@thecoinloft.com. You can also check us out online at thecoinloft.com or startitupde.com.
Terrific. Well, we're up against a break right now. We're going to come back and talk to a few of the business owners that have had success in starting out or in their interactions with the Coin Loft. So stay tuned. We will see you on the other side.
Welcome to Wilmington, Delaware. At Preservation Initiatives, we bring beautiful lofts to you. The recently renovated lofts at 400 Market Street are a must-see. A part of registered National Historic District. Featuring spacious floor plans, custom glass windows, solid surface countertops, stainless steel appliances, custom lighting, wood flooring, large closets, pocket doors, sunny interiors, high ceilings plus beautifully detailed trim molding. Enjoy the sights, sounds, and tastes of Market Street. Just a short walk from the Wilmington riverfront, featuring family-friendly places to enjoy, with plenty of restaurants, entertainment, and other small-town conveniences. Wilmington, Delaware, in the middle of it all. Reserve today. Preservation Initiatives, urban revitalization through historic preservation.
Preservation Initiatives is a wonderful, wonderful gem that we have here in the city of Wilmington. Don McGinley, its founder, has been developing historic properties since 1979. He's had properties in Boston, Miami, Philly, and now Wilmington. If you want to contact Preservation Initiatives in reference to any of the residential or commercial properties, please call them at 302-543-7565. That's 302-543-7565.
You're listening to WFAI 1510 AM. Welcome back to this week's edition of Evolution Strategies, Business Sustainability and Growth Simplified. If you're just joining us, get your pen and paper ready for more free advice from Carolyn Lighty and her guests.
Welcome back and good afternoon. If you're just joining us, we're talking about creating a sustainable startup ecosystem in Delaware. We're talking about one of the wonderful resources we have here right in downtown Wilmington called the Coin Loft. And joining me now are two wonderful gentlemen who actually experienced tremendous success after having been, I think, residents of or participants in the Coin Loft. So joining me right now are Zach Phillips. He's founder of The Kitchen, and he's going to tell us a lot about what that is. And then Bradford Wason, did I say it right? Okay, great. Of DMG Marketing Group. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon, Carolyn.
Okay. So let's start first with Zach Phillips, founder of The Kitchen. Zach, tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? You know, what interested you? How did you decide that you had this entrepreneurial bug and you had to get out there and make it happen?
I don't think that it really went down that way. Like, for me, the entrepreneurial bug was just out of necessity. I was living in Atlanta at the time, and I knew how to do a couple things, and I had recently decided not to go to graduate school because I didn't want to go into another $200,000 worth of debt. And people started asking me to do things, and they said, "Hey, can you build me a website? Can you make me an animated video?" And these were things I knew how to do, and I said okay, and then I just started doing it, and I found that there's a lot of demand for the stuff that I had learned. So that's really where it started off. And then I moved to Delaware because of a girl. And
who is still in your life or not?
Yes, we are actually to be wed in 2 weeks from yesterday. So
is she
yeah.
listening?
Thank you.
Say hi to her.
She may be, but I don't know if she had access to a radio because I took her car in order to get here. So that would have been her only radio.
Well, she could have tuned in online, but okay.
Yeah. So I came to Delaware and walked into the Coin Loft, since we're talking about the Coin Loft. Mm-hmm. And I think I asked like one or two questions, and then I said, "Can I have this desk?" Because it just made so much sense to me why you would want to be there instead of in my bathrobe at home trying to do things, because that's not super good.
Professional, or doesn't allow you to focus as much.
Well, what happens is you become a gremlin. Like nobody can. You don't speak to people for days on end. You find yourself at 8 o'clock at night opening your mouth, and like your voice is still groggy because you've been like in your house by yourself, coding and designing.
Wow, that's enough to put you to sleep, no?
It was a rough time, but we got through it, and mostly thanks to the Coin Loft.
So tell me about The Kitchen. What products or services do you offer?
So I was a film major in college, and then I got away from filmmaking for a while. Mostly because you have to have a whole lot of really expensive equipment in order to do filmmaking, and I didn't have that. And I had always had an interest in design and development, and so that's what I did for a while. And when I started The Kitchen, the idea was I was going to do both, but I didn't have a camera yet or anything. And so what happened is, as I started to get more jobs and make more money, I bought the camera equipment I wanted, and now The Kitchen is only video and film production. Wonderful. So I'm not doing the web anymore.
The coding and all that.
Yeah.
That sounds great. And so I have to ask, where did the name The Kitchen come from?
Really, it came from the fact that I have a lot of aspirations to do a lot of different things, and I didn't want to box myself into any one area. So I didn't want my business name to imply that I did one thing or another. So I just wanted a kind of a general brand, and it turned out that The Kitchen LLC was available in Delaware. And actually, Wes Garnett, who was on the line earlier, I was trying to come up with some theme on a kitchen, and then Wes was the one who we were walking back from playing basketball one day, and he said, "Why not just The Kitchen?" And it was like, yeah, okay. Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. So now let's go to Bradford. Bradford, tell us a little bit about how you came to become involved with the Coin Loft and your experience.
Sure, Carolyn. So I got involved in Coin Loft when they first started 3 years ago in 2010. I used to be the creative director for an ad agency in town, and that agency laid me off in January of 2010 to start the year off. And I knew that I didn't want to go to another full-time job because I really didn't want to have to report to someone as a boss anymore. So I decided to start my own firm, and the best way to do that, I didn't want to be a freelancer. I wanted to actually go out after Fortune 500s who I'd worked with, and Steve and Wes had this crazy idea that said, let's create a space for co-working. And I had to kind of actually look into what co-working was, and I was like, all right, I don't have to sit at home with my 2 dogs anymore and fret about how I'm going to pay my mortgage. I can still do that at the Coin Loft. But so I went to the Coin Loft, and I was their very first member. I actually helped them paint the walls of Coin Loft 1.0.
Wow.
I've been there I was there since the start, and I knew that I wanted to create a branding company, and I knew that I wanted to provide the same thoughtful solutions that I was working with my large clients when I left my agency to small business and other startups. So that's when I founded 23rd and 5th, which was a branding agency.
Interesting. So are you focused mostly on the larger companies now, or are you helping some of the smaller businesses?
I get to do a little bit of a mix. With 23rd and 5th, I was primarily small company, although I did work with ING Direct and some other larger brands to help them kind of find their way and path. But I still get to, what I like about what I get to do now as a freelancer and as a designer, I get to work with other startups like Zach Phillips and like the Coin Loft and like Mona, and people that have this vision and have this driving passion to go do something really interesting, and I get to kind of store that vision with them. So
I'd like to ask you both this question. If not for the Coin Loft, do you think where you are currently would have been different? Would it have been a different, The Kitchen and DMG today had you not gotten involved with the Coin Loft?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, 100%.
I mean, demonstrably. I met Brad because he would come visit the Coin Loft. He had since gotten his own space when I got there. And now I'm in Brad's old space. Brad did my logo. Like I said, Wes really kind of solidified the name. Like, everything would be different. And I mean, I think the main inspiring factor of the Coin Loft was just you were there surrounded by a bunch of other people trying to do something, and like Mona was saying, you had this accountability. You're there with all these people and you show up to work, and when you don't show up to work, like, why didn't you come to work?
It sounds very much like a family. It really does.
It is a family.
Yeah. And so do you work on projects together? If I came to you as XYZ nonprofit and I said, I need to freshen my brand, I need to raise more funds, I need to do all these things, and I don't, I have someone on staff, but they're just an intern, they don't really know what they're doing as much. I come to you and I say, guys, in the Coin Loft, can you help me? Do you then collaborate on that? How does that work?
Carolyn, this is Brad. Absolutely. Zach and I, our first project together was one for Girls Inc. Okay. Girls Inc. had come to me and said, through one of my other clients, and said, hey, we need a video to do fundraising and for this gala. I'm a branding guy. I don't do film. I don't do video, but I knew Zach did. And I asked Zach, I said, hey, would you come shoot this film for me and let's barter some work? So I'll do some work for you, if you would do some work for my nonprofit that I was associated with. And and that was our first working relationship. And since then, Zach and I have worked together for United Way of Delaware and a multitude of other nonprofits. So, on everything from what I'm good at for branding and what he was doing with film. So a lot of collaboration.
That makes it an even more of a resource, not just for the small business owner, but then for the entire business community. I don't know how much branding is done to say, listen, this is what we have in terms of talent over here. Come see us, come to us. Is there something like that that's going on right now? I know Mona is not mic'd up right now, but Okay.
Sure. There's a lot of business outreach, and I can kind of speak to it.
Okay.
Through, I think, some of our teaching events and also through events that we held like Delaware Tech Meetup and other events, we do see a lot of the outside community, business community, and nonprofit community come into this space, and we're able to connect resources to those folks. I know for myself, I met a lot of nonprofit partners who have become pro bono clients of mine through there that I've had now 3 or 4 year relationships with that I built on the Coin Loft. So that's been a really nice experience as a business owner to be able to give back to the community and be connected with a nonprofit that needs, our help. So,
and I think that, and again, this is me just thinking off the top of my head and throwing it out there, but I know that some of the other incubators I was involved with, when they go to the website, you kind of get a listing of all different types of businesses that are there. I didn't necessarily see anything like that on your website. Is there a plan to kind of do that?
From the Coin Loft, I believe there is. That website has gone through many iterations, and I think it's something that's growing. Started Up Delaware is still a new initiative, and we're still trying to kind of find our way on how that works into the Coin Loft. And I do think all of that is going to fall into place.
Okay, and are you still facing, as any businesses, this is kind of a rhetorical question, but answer it anyway. What challenges are you currently facing right now? I mean, because there are always challenges in terms of growing your business and sustaining your business. Are there challenges that you would...
Sure. I mean, I think there's definitely challenges. I had the fortune of, with 23rd and 5th, I actually sold it 1.5 years ago to a larger competitor. And I think as a business owner, you come to a point of how far you can grow your business with or without other resources, and to which level. And I'd met that level. So when I sold to a larger agency, I got access to a lot of other resources that I as an individual didn't have, cash flow capital, cash flow loans. And I think for myself, that was the biggest challenge I faced. And now moving forward as a partner in this new firm, being able to overcome some of our cash flow issues and be able to hire staff. As for my company, I bootstrapped it. I funded it 100% on my own. I used my own savings account. So now it's nice to have some of those other resources available.
You mentioned hiring people. Do you find the level of talent in this area that you need to help your business grow?
For the most part, absolutely. I very rarely have to go outside a market to find who I'm looking for.
Very good.
Zach Phillips, I think, is probably one of the premier filmmakers in the area that is a little bit undiscovered. But I think that's
Did he pay
changing.
you to say that?
He didn't. He didn't. His work quality is just magnificent. And outside of that, but I've met developers through tech meetups and startup weekends that I didn't know were here, and I don't know if I don't think I would have found them without Started Up Delaware and without the Coin Loft.
Yeah, so it was a really great catalyst for getting that visibility.
Absolutely.
For the businesses. Zach, what challenges are you currently facing?
Well,
I
was thinking, as far as I understand it, like if you just make sure that your address is right with the DMV. And you say you're open, the checks just start arriving in the...
Zach's the one with the
the checks just start coming in, So basically no problem at all.
If you build it, they will come. No. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. No, I think I've been really, really lucky recently. I mean, it's always a challenge, and I pretty much always at right on the edge, just going to the next job. But I recently was really lucky to get a job and I think this is good to mention because this job would never never gone to a local Delaware company.
Wow.
It had always gone, because this was a commercial job that was a higher budget commercial that they would always go to Philadelphia or New York for. And I was able to kind of intercept that work, and it was for the Choose Health Delaware, which is the rollout of the Affordable Care Act here in Delaware,
and
wonderful. A bunch of television commercials for that.
Wow!
And so.
Did you respond to an RFP? How did you get access to that?
No, I got access to that because of Delaware, really, because of the fact that in Delaware, the thing that I found that's true is you really, there's nothing between you and anybody else. You can meet anybody you want to in town. And so I actually, this job literally came because I invited some guys to lunch one day.
Wow.
And then they met me, they saw some of my work, and then later on when they were in a spot where they knew they needed something, they called me up. And
there you go.
That's how it goes.
There you go. So almost what you said. Get your address right.
Exactly. No, you just make sure the address is right, or the checks won't come to the right box.
That's great. All right. My next question was going to be, what is your biggest success? I don't know. You haven't really finished that project yet, but I think next year when I ask you that.
Oh, it's finished. It's up.
It's done?
Yeah, you'll see
wow.
the commercials all around it. That's the biggest success because in terms of visibility and probably the work I'm more proud of, but I had the resources to do it, right? Because that's the thing. Most people don't know what film production, what can all go into it to make it higher and higher quality. And so when you put a lot of resources into it, it comes out really well.
Well, I can't wait to see that for myself, my own eyes. I'm going to ask you then, Bradford, what would you say is your biggest success so far?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's tough because our day job at 23rd and 5th / DMG Marketing is direct mail. So I'm responsible for what a lot of people like to call junk mail, 70 million pieces a month to the tune of with a lot of the banks in the area. So I guess you could suppose that's a big success working with Barclays and Barclaycard and having a really ongoing relationship with them. But
absolutely,
I think that's been great to grow into that Fortune 500 market, and some of that's through Delaware and some of that's just through a lot of driving business growth. But I really think my largest success has been working with nonprofit partners. I personally have this big give back philosophy, and I've been able to work with a lot of great nonprofits at our local level, and to me that's the largest success. And I think
most rewarding.
It is. It's most rewarding, and I think my second biggest success is actually being able to teach for the Coin Loft. On the side, I've been an adjunct professor for 10 years, and recently the Coin Loft
10 years? You look like you're about 20.
I know. I just turned 30. But I've had the opportunity to go back to the Coin Loft and start teaching some classes for them, and I believe in the power of education, and I really believe in trying to give back to the community, and I think being able to talk to business owners directly and offer classes that I was teaching at University of Delaware and Delaware College of Art and Design for a fraction of the cost at Coin and connecting with owners, that to me has been a huge success, and that's something that came from that partnership.
And I just realized I lied because
you just realized.
Yes, because there was something else besides just inviting some guys to lunch that led to that job, which was taking a job with a nonprofit that paid almost nothing, but that that's one thing that I want to always come back to and continue to serve. Our primary client base is nonprofits, and that's they don't always have budget for big jobs, but what happens is you meet a lot of people through nonprofits. You help people they remember, and they connect you to other people later, and on top of that you're a good person or whatever.
Good.
So
it's a feel-good thing for everybody all the way
absolutely.
around. That's good. So I want to get some contact information for the two of you, and then I want to ask Mona about some of the events. You mentioned to me an event that just took place that sounded really exciting, so I wanted to get a little information about that and anything that's coming up. So let's start with you, Bradford. Tell us how people can get in touch with you.
The best way to probably get in touch with me is either through the Coin Loft, and you can email them at crew@thecoinloft.com, or if you want, Twitter is an easy way to track me down. I'm at Brad Wason. That's Wason, and it's all one word.
Okay, and Zach?
I'm Zach Phillips on Twitter. That's Zach with an H and Phillips with 2 L's. So ZACHPHILLIPS.
I was going to say, tell us the order that they're in, because
sorry.
Okay, and that's all you want to give out at this point?
Well, if you want to see our work, thekitchen.co. Actually, tomorrow I'll be putting up those commercials. So that actually makes me have to do it now that I've announced that I'm doing it.
See, about that accountability and focus again. See, we're keeping you honest.
Absolutely.
I want you to leave our listeners with one tip. One tip for a small business owner out there. Bradford?
My biggest tip to you is to take the first step and just go do it. When I first started a business, I had a whole list of cons on why I shouldn't start a business and how I was going to go get business. And it turns out once you take the leap off the cliff and say, I'm going to go do this, everything else just falls into place. So there's a ton of resources out there. whatever you have in that voice in the back of your head that's holding you back, you've just got to jump in there and you just got to do it. So that's my advice to you.
Perfect. Zach?
My biggest tip, and I think that I can actually speak for Brad on this too in some ways, is that money can't really be your motivation. I don't think that's enough motivation to do it. I know that in Brad's case, the reason that he does what he does is because he wants to get better at the work he does. And that's the same thing with me. My primary motivation is to get better at what I do so that someday I can be really proud of what I do. And without that, I don't think, without doing something that you actually care about and want to get better at, you probably won't have what you need to get through all the really difficult things you have to do in order to start a business. Yeah. So it can't just be about money. It's about, I want to get better at this, and I'm setting up this business so that I can get better at it and work at it every day.
That's great. And that's a healthy attitude, because a lot of folks will think, okay, you're in business for yourself. I can't tell you, my first business when I started it, I worked 7 days a week for 7 years straight before I could actually start taking vacations and going, places. And they'd say, your time is your own. You're in your own business. Yeah, but I have 14 employees. I have bills that you would not believe. And I've got to make sure everything gets paid and taken care of. So that means putting in that time. But it was something that I love to do. I've always loved helping. I've always, just as Bradford was talking about, my most rewarding clients have always been nonprofits, because you feel like you're really helping. Not only are you providing whatever the service is, but you're actually helping people, real people, and you see the results of that. But the work with the Fortune 500, it's kind of, you know that you're doing what you're getting paid to do, but you're not sure the impact of that all the time. So I applaud both of you and wish you continued success.
Thank you very much for having us.
Absolutely. So Mona, tell me about this event that you were talking about on the phone when I talked to you initially. You had a big event. What was it, a month
That's
ago?
right. No, it was on September 17th, so not too long ago. We had Neil Sells Griffin. He is the CEO and co-founder of the Starter League, which was formerly known as Code Academy, which was probably the very first code school in the United States, and it's based in Chicago. And basically what Code Academy's mission and ideology really was is that everyone can and should learn how to code. So it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter what your skill set is. But if you have an idea for tech and you think that tech can make the world a better place, but you just don't have the technical skills to start, we're a school that in 12 weeks will take you from zero to running.
Wow.
And so I actually attended this school last summer. I lived in Chicago for 3 months, and I took classes and I learned back-end development in Ruby on Rails because I had a web app idea for for a web app that could actually help law firms. And my idea changed a lot over the course of the summer because, it was pretty complicated. But I finally figured out a small working piece of it that I had, the skill set to build out. So Neil was the founder of this school, and we became friends. And he's probably, he was only 24 when I met him.
Wow, young.
So, they're really taking over the world pretty much with this school. And so Neil and I have kept in touch, and he agreed to come to Delaware to be a speaker at our tech meetup. And he came, and we had about 100 people in attendance, and he gave us his story, a founder story, and we followed that up with a pitch competition. So we asked Delaware, give us your best 60-second pitch for a digital tech startup idea that can improve Delaware. So we had some really interesting pitches, and it was just very exciting to see the community come together and say, we know we're in Wilmington, but we want to be working on and be able to contribute to this tech revolution.
Absolutely. Interesting. Well, what I liked about your story is that it shows that, anyone can come up with an idea. I can't imagine, I'm sure everyone out there has had an idea. But the next step is to begin to bring it to fruition through some sort of planning, some sort of education. And from your standpoint, you're trained, and your schooling was based on becoming an attorney,
right?
Not necessarily coding, programs and so forth. So, but you had an idea for attorneys, and you're saying that now, even though you went through the course and you didn't necessarily fulfill the entire idea, but part of it is actually out there and working and supporting.
Well,
industry.
I'm still working on it.
Okay.
Because what Code Academy does is it sort of gives you different pieces of one big puzzle that you need when you're launching a business. And actually, through It Up Delaware, one of our board members is the head of the Entrepreneurial Studies program, which is part of the Lerner Business College. His name is Dan Freeman, and he actually invited me to be an adjunct faculty at U of D. So I'm teaching Intro to Entrepreneurship right now to undergrads, and they come to me all the time with, Mona, I have this great idea, and I want to build it out. So it's teaching someone that it's more than having an idea. There's a method and there's a process and there's really a science behind it. And having an idea is really, if you're committed to building out your idea, you need to be committed to the process and testing it and treating it like a science experiment. An idea is really nothing more than a hypothesis.
That's good.
So it's teaching people the method behind just the idea itself.
Well, great. Sounds like you really, really are engrossed in what it takes to become a successful business owner.
Work in progress.
You're speaking from experience also, because do you still have your location at the Coin Loft?
I do.
Where you have
I
your
do.
Business?
Yes.
Okay.
So my Parikh Law LLC started at the Coin Loft in May 2012, and as I tend to do, give my unsolicited opinion a lot. The guys, Wes and Steve, and some of the other people on the It Up Delaware board, probably thought, hey, why don't we just give her a role since she's telling us what to do anyways.
Make it official.
Exactly. And I think really, after being in Chicago and being a part of their startup ecosystem and really seeing how events, education, and in that case, some accelerators that were based in the same co-working space as Code Academy, since I was really able to get entrenched in that, they thought, wow, you've really been in it and experienced it firsthand, so we could really use, your tips and your perspective on what we need to do to build something similar here.
That's good. So, and then in your role that involves marketing and all of that as
yes,
well?
So, I'm the community manager of the Coin Loft, and that's a very broadly defined
broad job
role
description.
At this point, right. I'm also the managing director for the Coin Loft, for It Up Delaware. So I do everything from, new member tours to answering members' questions day to day to, things like this, appearances on behalf of It Up Delaware, and really help them execute their strategic plan.
Oh, that sounds great. Why don't you give our listening audience contact information for you again so that they can get
one more time. The best and quickest way to get a hold of me is crew@thecoinloft.com.
That's the best way to get in touch with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, and do you have any events coming up?
We do. So on October 3rd, we have the first Thursday of every month, we have Delaware Ruby Group. And as I mentioned before, Ruby on Rails is a programming language. At 6 p.m., we're going to have Mike Nicolades of PromptWorks. PromptWorks is a company that makes handcrafted web apps for companies. He's going to come speak to our programming community and tell us a little bit about more of what his company does. And, the event is open. So if you want to attend, I believe you can, if you send me an email at crew@thecoinloft.com, that's probably the best way to put us on your radar. Or I believe it's delawarerb.org.
Okay. And, when I hear of all the technology, because this is more technology focused, what kind of person are you talking to, when it comes to this event? Is it someone who already has programming experience?
This one, yes. But, I recognize in Delaware that a lot of people just want to get started. A lot of people just want to figure out, what are you talking about? What's going on? What is this coding thing that everyone says I need to know about? So, if you're curious, I would encourage you to come. But I think if you have some programming experience, some prior experience, you will definitely get more out of it. If you are less technical but more kind of just a techie, you want to identify yourself as a lover of using technology, I would encourage you to come to our Delaware Tech Meetups. We usually we have those on the third Thursday of every month at the Coin Loft, and you can find our group on meetup.com. If you just Google Delaware Tech Meetup, you'll get the information on how to sign up. Okay.
And as far as events that are non-techie, is anything like that planned? More of I'm an entrepreneur just wanting to find out more about the community.
So at the Delaware Tech Meetup, something that we found was for our classes and our workshop, we really found that students enjoyed any class that required you to have a deliverable. People really liked. But for some of the more broader topics like entrepreneurship in general, we're trying to channel those more into our Delaware Tech Meetups. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to know a little bit about what that means, or are you doing the right things, or what are the best practices, I also still encourage you to come to the tech meetup, because you're going to get a little bit of both. You're going to get a little bit of entrepreneurship, you're going to get a little bit of the tech, and you're also, and I think the most important thing is, you're going to get the networking.
Absolutely. Well, that kind of does it for this week's show. I want to thank Mona.
Thank you so much, Carolyn.
I want to thank Wes, who was on the line, and also Zach and Bradford. Thank you so much for participating in today's show. Again, our goal here is to give you tips and techniques that you can use immediately. If you want to get in touch with me, you can call me at 302-300-1003, or you can follow me on Twitter also at Carolyn_Lighty. That's CAROLYN_LIGA.